The Book in the Attic. In 1944, as Allied forces pushed through Europe, a French family fleeing their countryside home packed only what they could carry. One item made the cut: a small weathered book wrapped in cloth. Inside were 4 cryptic line verses written in archaic French, Quatrains. The family believed those verses had predicted the rise of Napoleon, the Great Fire of London, even the war unfolding around them. The book was Les Prophecies. Its author? A 16th century physician named Michel de Nostradamus, or better known as Nostradamus. For over 450 years, people have opened his work during times of crisis, searching for answers. And somehow, they always seem to find them. But the real mystery isn't whether Nostradamus predicted the future. It's why we keep believing he did. In this episode of the Conspiracy Atlas, I will be talking about Nostradamus and his predictions, and if they are real or not real. The man behind the myth. Nostradamus was not a mystic by trade. He was a trained physician. Born in 1503 in southern France, he studied medicine during a time when plague devastated Europe. His early reputation came not from prophecy, but from treating the sick. But Renaissance Europe was steeped in astrology. Astronomy and astrology were intertwined sciences. Physicians routinely cast horoscopes to guide treatments. But in 1555, Nostradamus published Les Prophéties, a collection of 942 quatrains, written in cryptic language, mixed with French, Latin, Greek, and it was intentionally vague. But why? Well, because prophecy in the 16th century was dangerous. Religious authorities were very and kind of, weary of hearsay. Political leaders feared sedation. Ambiguity was protection. He avoided dates, avoided direct names, and avoided specifics. Instead, he wrote in symbols, which would later become the foundation of interpretation. The predictions that came true. Supporters claim Nostradamus predicted the rise of Napoleon, the ascent of Hitler, the atomic bomb, the assassination of JFK, the 9/11 attacks. But here's where analysis matters. After major events, interpreters search backward through the quatrains for lines that kind of resemble what happened. This is called retrospective fitting. For example, one quatrain references a hister. Of course, if you change one of the letters in hister, you know what actually that sounds like. It's for the German chancellor that ruled during World War II. Historians also note that hister was an old name for the Danube River. The human brain excels at pattern recognition. It is wired to connect fragments. Ambiguity becomes adaptability. A vague line like 2 steel birds will fall from the sky could fit any countless disaster. Once an event occurs, meaning around it begins to form. Before it occurs, the verse feels obscure. This isn't proof of fraud, it's proof of language elasticity. The quatrains survive because they are flexible by any means necessary. Nostradamus resurges during instability as we know it, during wars, economic crashes, even pandemics. During COVID-19, online searches for Nostradamus on every search engine spiked. Why? Because uncertainty creates cognitive stress. We need to keep ourselves occupied and to see if it was actually true. Humans crave narrative closure. Prophecy provides the illustration of structure. If a catastrophe were to unfold, and if it was foretold, then chaos feels scripted. Scripted chaos feels less random, and we don't worry about it too much. Less random also feels less terrifying. Geopolitically, though, prophecy can also be weaponized. Leaders have historically used prophetic language to frame legitimacy over the course of history. Apocalyptic rhetoric mobilizes populations. Whether or not Nostradamus predicted events in the secondary of his quatrains, his verses function as interpretive mirrors. People see what they fear and what they hope. The science of prediction. Could Nostradamus have statistically been accurate? Let's examine the probability. If someone writes 942 quatrains over centuries across wars, disasters, revolutions, uprisings, pandemics, some will inevitably appear to align with these events. It's similar to the infinite monkey theorem. Given enough text and enough time, patterns do emerge. Also consider confirmation bias. People remember the hits and what they don't forget. Forget the misses. Hundreds of quatrains remain unmatched. The predicted world ending dates failed. Specific timelines absent. Yet the myth persists because Nostradamus did something powerful. He avoided being falsifiable and falsified. He wrote in metaphor, and metaphor survived scrutiny even some 500 years later. Now, did you know Nostradamus' book has never gone out of print since the 16th century, or that during World War II, both Allied and the Axis forces reportedly used Nostradamus interpretations for propaganda, or that many English translations of his quatrains seem to be very vague, significantly sometimes changing the meaning entirely. The future may not change, but the translation does, and interpretation always evolves with the present time. For nearly 5 centuries, Nostradamus has haunted our human imagination, not because his words are precise, but because they are adaptable. Prophecy isn't about prediction, it's about projection. We project fear into and onto ambiguity. We project hope into uncertainty. We project structure into chaos. Nostradamus wrote during plague, war, and even religious tension. We read him during the same. Perhaps this is the real pattern. Not events aligning with verses, but humanity aligning with anxiety. The question isn't, did Nostradamus see the future? The question is, why do we keep looking for someone who did? And if his quatrains are real, did it predict some of the biggest events in history? World War II, the first and second Antichrist, the Great Fire. Everything in his quatrains are still there. And when you look at a catastrophic event that happens, or when an official is elected and is tearing down the whole world one by one, piece by piece, it aligns because we want it to align. And that's the big picture. Anything is possible with Nostradamus and his quatrains. What did he see? How did he see it? Why did he write in certain codes and symbols and texts? That's the big mystery and the big issue. So that's been this week's episode of the Conspiracy Atlas, talking about Nostradamus and his predictions. Let me know in the comments what you think about this episode. And do you believe some of his predictions? Did you believe that some things in history did occur? Did he predict them? Or do you think it's actually true that when an event happens in the world, we go back to the Nostradamus theory and we see something that aligns and we say, oh, there it is, and that's what happened? Do you think that's what we do just to make our heads a little bit more clearer and try and have that aspect of not to be afraid? Let me know in the comments about what I talked about in this episode. Be sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Share this episode. Tell all your family or friends about the Conspiracy Atlas and what I'm talking about. I'm here to give you the truth about what's going on in the world, and nothing is out of means. I will be 100% truthful with you, and that's what this podcast is all about. So that's been this episode of the Conspiracy Atlas. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you all in next week's episode.